Boom. And just like that, they were live. Welcome to the program, everybody. Thank you for being part of this. Without you, this would really not be worth doing. So first of all, warm welcome to everybody. Thanks for being with myself and our guests as we go through this week. Your presence is much appreciated. So do let me know that you're here by saying hello, because the comment stream lets me know that you're here. So if you can see this, say hi, let me know. Otherwise, yeah, you're some. And the first hi. Well done, David. By the way, David Pye, first man to make a comment tonight. Well done. I don't know what happened in the comment stream there, actually. So anyway, you're all welcome. And as always, we have our special guest, Rebecca Butler, with us. Going to bring Rebecca on in a second. But before we do that, have to go through my drill routine, basically. Just make sure if you're watching this, wherever it is, if it's in YouTube, Odyssey, brand YouTube, Facebook, BitChute, wherever it is, make sure you give a like and share and hit a notification if at all possible. That would be really good if you do that there. Make sure you share the love, all those different platforms. Social media links are down below, so you can subscribe to me on Odyssey, on BitChute, on brand YouTube, just down below. So that's where you have to go if you want to find those things. If you like what we're saying, give it a thumbs up. Now, you all have to give a thumbs up. I'm going to be checking on each and every one of you. Hello, Elizabeth, Ian, Joe, Jane, Andrew, yeah, John. Give it a thumbs up, right? Also, to ensure this continues, by the way, you need to go to either altnewsmedia.net/donate and drop a penny in the hat, as they say. That's where you go to do that. If you enjoy this and you think it's worth doing, there you can make you can make donations in whatever amounts you want there, folks. It's all in that simple link, and that's down below as well. Do that, and I think that's about it, really. That's all oh yeah, there is one more thing. I've forgotten. I have, believe it or not, started to do a podcast as well, which has just come up on the screen there. If you look, so what I'd like you to do is, now I haven't quite cracked this podcasty thing yet, but don't trust me. I and my producer Jed definitely will. So go to my podcast on the link, and you'll get lots of content there, and some of that content will be exclusive, purely audio, not visual, on different things. So just to let you know. So hi Scott, good to see you as well on the stream. And well, she's always very patient. I mean, she personifies patience, and of course I'm referring to my always special Monday night guest, and that's Rebecca Butler. Welcome to the stream, Rebecca.
Bonsoir, David. Comment ça va?
Well, you see, Rebecca is at an undisclosed European location. So we are covering the continent as we speak this evening. Rebecca, how's your broadband holding up?
I don't know. The dog's currently sucking it out with a straw to try and improve it. So here's hoping that Macron holds up for me.
Okay. Hey, Jean Wallace, thank you very much. Jean, big shout out for first super sticker of this evening. Thank you very much, Jean. It's people like you that make all this happen, and we appreciate it. But yes, Rebecca, you're looking very summery, and I know the weather is good over there, you're saying, but I have to say, I mean, heads up, it's pretty damn nice outside as well. In fact, I don't know, this is probably in fact, it's definitely just me. But when I go away, to warmer climes, I would, because of my lack of hair, I put, lotion on, protection on. But for some reason, which is inexplicable to me, Rebecca, when I'm here, I don't. Net result, I get burnt. Now, at this age, I mean, I haven't figured it out by this age, so I'm never going to figure it out, basically. So I've been dealing with head issues during the week. But I don't mind.
That's where you get all your skin cancers, is on the top of the head and here on your nose.
And that's true. No, and that is true, and actually, it's a very good warning for everybody. That being said, here in Northern Ireland, we do get about 2 or 3 sunny days a year. So, on balance, I take the risk in that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And
so Rebecca, it's good to have you back with us this evening. And as is always the way, I mean, there's so much stuff we could have talked about. Some of it we've talked about before. We could have talked about Gareth Southgate and the English Football Association insisting, Rebecca, they're going to take the knee. They're going to take the knee during the Euros, which kicks off, I think it's Friday, isn't it? So,
I, as you know, watch the football, and
I know.
at half time yesterday, they were talking about it. It was in the studio, and there was Ian Wright, Roy Keane, and
Yeah.
Ashley Cole virtue signaling over this, and they're saying, well, if you boo, you're part of the problem. Now, nobody I know, and I'm sure the whole stream will agree, racism is wrong. No, there's no two ways about it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Do you know what else is wrong? Drink driving, beating people up, having fisticuffs with your wife, Ashley Cole. I know Cheryl Tweedy's a bit of a violent thug as well, so it's not just him. He's been done for assault. He's been done for drink driving. Roy Keane was a complete animal when he was a defender. He's also been up before the courts for assaulting people. Yeah, I can take it from Gary Virtue Signal Lineker, because he's just unbearably wokey, but he's clean as a whistle as far as, apart from the affairs. But why aren't they doing something about talking about Ryan Giggs and his domestic violence and all the stuff he's been involved with? Why are they allowed to even talk about race, these guys? Why are they allowed to do it? The whole point of sport is to keep politics out. That's why we have Russian athletes still at the Olympic Games, despite the fact that Russia's banned because of the doping, but we still allow their athletes to compete in neutral colours. So leave politics out, and don't you dare tell me, Ashley Cole, how to fricking well behave. I will not have it. I won't have it.
Yeah, well, you're right, Rebecca. Politics, I reckon most sporting fans, football fans, but other sports as well, we don't want politics. We want to watch whatever the game is, whatever the activity is, enjoy it, appreciate it, and we don't need the virtue signaling. But we've talked about this one before, and actually, although. Yeah, before we get into the main topics, the one thing I've noticed is some football fans, English football fans, saying that they're sick to the back teeth of this, and the fact that Gareth Southgate and that association are like hell-bent to push it down our throat. And that actually might mean that some English fans stop supporting England in the Euros. It's mad stuff. I mean, it's really mad, but there you go.
A lot of people are saying that they, please, halftime commentary, please talk to me about the game and, whether Jack Grealish or James Ward-Prowse is going to make it into the squad. That's your job. Ashley Cole, don't go beating women up and then tell us that we have to take a knee for a political organisation. The double standard hypocrisy is just unbelievable. And what do these guys do for a living? They kick a ball around. They haven't got education. They don't understand the wider world. They kick a ball around. Shut up, kick the ball, and then go home, please.
Yeah. Here. Absolutely agree with you, Rebecca. That's my views as well. And we'll see how well England does. Because just actually on the psychology of it, I don't know about you, but I think if I was in a competitive sporting event and I started that sporting event on my knees, that's not a good psychological thing I'm doing. It's like, I wonder what my opponents who are standing watching me bow down, I wonder what psychology that On the psychological front. I wonder what that
Yeah,
induces when you're on your competitors.
I think if the crowd responded positively to it, then you'd think, well, hey, look at me, aren't I brilliant? But we know the crowds are responding pretty much as you and I always said they
Yes.
would. Just wait till the crowds are back, because
Yeah. Yeah.
the whole 10 at Aston Villa won't have any of this. I know that for a fact. But
Yeah.
it doesn't do a team's morale any good to be booed at to start with. And then there are some in the team who actually don't want to do it, but are being forced to do it because of pressure from above. But a lot of the players are saying they don't want to do it. A lot of the black players are saying they don't want to do it because it's a futile token and it's not achieving anything. So that's what the players themselves are saying. I think it sets them off in the wrong mindset.
I do. Yeah. And actually, Rebecca, in the Six Nations in the rugby, because the English team didn't perform as well as they really should have performed, but they were also up to their necks on their knees, if you'll pardon the mixing of the anatomy. And again, I think it's sort of psychologically damaging for English sport. But hey, anyway, we've explained it to them, and it'll be really interesting to see how England. I used to always kind of support England myself. If Northern Ireland weren't in, that was my default team to support. This time round, I'm thinking, no, I'm sorry, you're going to virtue signal the BLM. I'm all out of sympathies for you if things go wrong, but we'll see. Anyway, let's move on to our topics, Rebecca. We have a handful of other things we can talk about, and the first one is we're going to just bring up the story here on this on the screen, so people can see it, and it relates to the whole. There's been a big foreign aid debacle, or whatever we want to call it. And this is where this headline's a bit old now. It was this morning. So much changes. Rebel Tories, yes, they were blocked in a bid to reverse cuts off to the foreign aid budget. Just bring it up the screen a bit there, Jed. Yeah. So Andrew Mitchell, he was one of the ones. It seems to be Theresa May's boys, I think, Rebecca, were behind this. There was a group of them, and they wanted to basically try and inflict a defeat on the government on the cutting of foreign aid, of 4 billion of foreign aid. And this is where they wanted spending to go from 0.5% to 0.7%, which is about 4 billion in easy money. 4 billion, easy money. But that didn't happen because the speaker, again, he's a really good guy. I like Lindsay Hoyle. He seems to observe the propriety of Parliament, which is a good thing, Rebecca. But on foreign aid, I'll just, before I let you have yours say, the best analysis I heard of foreign aid was foreign aid is where poor people in rich countries give money to rich people in poor countries. And there is a distinct element of truth in that. But anyway, I'm glad that these rebels didn't get their way today. Pleased about it. If they want to have a debate on it, that's fine. Like Lindsay Hoyle says, that's okay. But I certainly am glad that foreign aid has been cut. I'd like to see it cut much more. What do you think, Rebecca?
Well, I mean, procedurally, Lindsay Hoyle just said this wasn't within the remit of the law. And yes, you're right. It's nice to have a speaker back who actually does read Erskine May for procedure. However, he did criticize the government quite staunchly. And some commentators were saying they had never seen a speaker remonstrate so strictly with the government. But basically, they are going to have a binding vote on it after a debate. So they couldn't put it through as an amendment. They're going to have to debate it first, but it will be a binding vote. So I think it'll end up at 0.5%. But I heard they only managed to get 30 rebels.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
an 80 majority. 30 rebels would have just made Johnson sweat a little bit. So this is obviously, it really harks back to Brexit. This is very much a Brexit Party, Reform Party agenda, is to cut the foreign aid budget. And of course, people don't mind spending foreign aid, but why are we spending 0.7% on foreign aid to India when India spends 0.65% of its GDP on foreign aid? It's a bit of a money go round for some countries. And then there are always these sort of apocryphal stories about, countries like Ethiopia, because the money has to be spent, otherwise it gets lost. They're just handing it out to, teeny bopper pop groups and
Yeah,
things.
the Ethiopian Spice Girls, if I remember rightly.
I mean, you can just see it, can't you? Honestly, give it to Kate Bingham; she'll sort it out. Let her have control of where we spend our money. There is a good argument for foreign aid, definitely.
There's a good argument against it as well. A very good argument. Here's what I think. I mean, charity is one of the best things we can do as human beings. I think, Rebecca, I guess people might agree with this, but I believe that it should be an individual choice. So if I want to give to a given charity wherever in the world, that's my right to do that. What I object to is virtue signaling politicians taking my taxes, splashing it where they want. And then worse than that, the 0.7%, this arbitrary figure, I think it was Cameron that put this in place. I mean, I see no reason for 0.7%. And the question is, Rebecca, aren't there more worthy things that could be done for vulnerable, needy people in our country? People that, we talk about, there's lots of areas where help can be given, elderly people and stuff like that there that need help. Why don't we look after our own? And then when that's sorted out, then we look to see what we want to do. What do you think?
Yeah, well, charity does begin at home, and where we've got people severely adversely affected by the pandemic, by the lockdowns. Yes, we do need the money. So Boris Johnson is absolutely on the money here. He's quite right to reduce it, because we've got a 4 million patient waiting list now on the NHS. We need, homeless veterans. We need to.
That's another one. Yeah.
For them, I would happily see money go to of our veterans. We don't do enough. And I looked before coming on air tonight. I looked at our contributions globally. We are one of the highest. We're sort of third in the list of every country on the planet, with America trailing right behind on percentage of GDP, which is the most important number. 0.7% of a lot of money is a lot of money. I think that there needs to be a proper audit. I think there has to be a debate on this. I think this has to be aired publicly. And so my happiness at what Lindsay Hoyle did, my happiness is all around having an open debate and allow the dissenters, the people like us, to put the case as to why we shouldn't be spending the aid money we are. Why can't we be the same as the US or Germany, or, why is it 0.7%? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to waste. But, I have a major issue with the third sector, the charitable sector, and this touches in on that, is that, this is government handing more money to charities, and I have a major
well, I think that's one thing we share. I have got a huge issue and have had a huge issue about that sector for quite a number of years now. But as you say, like we've lived through this pandemic. We've seen business decimated in certain sectors of the economy. We've seen lots of things, and you would sort of think, why would we not try and divert our own cash to our own people? I was surprised to see David Davis. I think he was one of the ones behind this rush to get it back up to 0.7. I think with Theresa May, I think this is the old, a woman scorned and all that, don't you think? Well, why would she suddenly be to the fore in this kind of let shaft Boris when he's doing other stuff routine? What do you think?
Well, I think maybe I'll just end on this, that Trump is said to have said that he'd pay £100,000 not to hear Theresa May speak. I mean, the political ego is a terrifying thing to witness. And, you know, her legacy is pathetic. Her legacy is a very, very expensive 2050 carbon neutral piece of legislation. And, you know, she is just slamming us into that, and as if that legacy wasn't enough. She's this pursuit of relevance is really quite pathetic. Steve Bryan did it as well today. I heard some poor sod interview him last night, you know, and he's such a nasty individual, and you know, he sort of brushes off his constituents, people like me. You know, he says, well, you know, basically, I know some of my constituents won't agree with me, but I don't care. You know, it's sort of the arrogance. Do you not know who puts you where you are, mate? You wouldn't be on telly if it wasn't for idiots like us having nobody else to vote for. Hi, Steve.
I see Simon Hastings says Desmond Swayne. Apparently, he was. It's interesting, Simon, because I didn't get all the names. That is interesting. Also, Rebecca, maybe you want to address this point. Oh, I just brought it up there. Homeless veterans would be happy to live in the Napier barracks, where obviously some of the asylum seekers were put up, but not deemed good enough for them. Could you answer why it's not good enough for asylum seekers? Rebecca, do you want to take that one?
Well, I mean, yeah, I to be honest, I don't know enough about this, because are they disused barracks? Was there some issue over coronavirus and that they couldn't prevent cross infection? Don't cross in a dinghy then, don't come across the channel in a dinghy if you're bothered about social distancing. But anyway, but you know, Obin, there are quite a few activist judges doing the circuits, and it's not unusual to get one who's got a bit of a lefty lean to them. But maybe the facts bore that out. I don't know. I honestly don't know enough. But it was staggering to think, hang on, we put servicemen in pretty shoddy accommodation, and now the asylum seekers are, you know, struggling with first world problems. It's why are they always men? Are there no women who are vulnerable? Are there no female children asylum seekers? Where are the women who are struggling in these
why are they always men of fighting age as well? Why is that? But I'll tell you, actually, just before we go off this one, because we've wandered onto the armada that crosses the channel, I thought it was strange of Priti Patel suggesting earlier that she wanted the media, the social media, to stop showing footage of the dinghies and the boats arriving at the channel ports. And she said, Rebecca, well, yeah, this is because, you know, it's almost like an advertisement for the people smugglers. But some of it's not. No, I'm sorry, Priti Patel, I disagree with you. Some of it might be, but most of it is just people with a camera recording what's happening at Dover or wherever it is. So I thought that was a really strange, almost like Priti thinks the best way to deal with it is not to show it. What do you think?
I think it is an advert, and it's an advert for how utterly ineffective she's been, and it's just proof of failure, isn't it? And I think that they don't like that. So tough, you know, sort it out. Now, I did hear a story, again, purely anecdotal, that the French were saying that when they go to the dinghy to pick them up, the passengers are saying, no merci, we don't want the French, thank you very much. We want to be picked up by the British. And if you don't allow the British to pick us up, then we will throw somebody overboard. And then you're in trouble. Which, you know, these are very, very sophisticated asylum seekers. And can I just say that if I set sail in a dinghy across the channel, a rib, which is what these are now, with an outboard.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Nobody would stop me. Nobody would stop me. I would have free passage. But the minute they see what look like asylum seekers, then they stop them and pick them up. Even though they may not be at risk, they pick them up. But it seems to be de facto, if you're a coloured male in a dinghy, you'll get picked up in the channel. Seriously, they wouldn't pick me up. They just assume I was there on a day trip. So what I'm saying is it's saving lives at sea is the mantra, but they're just basically picking everybody up. The only advantage to all of this is you would think, and I would think, well, actually, this is better than people just arriving on beaches and vaporizing. But in fact, they do. They come in, they get fed, and then they vaporize. So they're now vaporizing on a full stomach.
Exactly.
Before, they wrap them. They don't get the silver foil wrapping paper, and they just sort of fade into the Kent sort of community. Or well, they'd head up to London, wouldn't they? Paying with their iPhone, get a train fare. People are asking questions, the right questions here. How are they getting around? What are their communication networks?
Yeah.
You
got to wonder these things. But anyway, Rebecca, we'll move on. We'll move on to our second topic. I've got three topics we're trying to get through. So usually fail, but who knows? We might succeed tonight. So before we get into the next one, I mean, the thing is, I'm really glad in retrospect that when I was young, when I was a teenager, that there wasn't social media, because then my young teenage thoughts were not going to be captured in perpetuity, which is exactly what's happened to, if we bring it up now, Jed, the England cricket. I see the sporting thing, by the way, but I guess it's an influence you have on me. Sports appearing into my my topics. Boris Johnson agrees with Oliver Dowden over the punishment of Ollie Robinson, who is a pretty good looking, a pretty nifty looking player, actually. But he was suspended, as it says here. He was suspended for historical, racist and sexist tweets. And Boris, probably playing the populist card, but he's right on this one, has agreed with Oliver Dowden, I think. He thought that the England suspension of the Seamer was over the top. Because he wrote this stuff back, he's 27 now, so he wrote this back in 2012. So what age was he then? He was, what?
18, 19.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So he was 19. He was 18, 19. As I say, I know it's the world we live in. I understand social media is probably a minefield for young people, but I wondered what you thought about this, because I thought it was over the top. I don't understand why the England Cricketing Board are going through the tweets of people from 10 years or longer. I don't understand that, why the ECB was doing that. And I'm with Boris in this one, and with Dowden. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm in agreement, and this sort of thing. There are aspects that really need to be spoken about here, because this is cancel culture.
Yep.
And this is direct cancel culture. But who the hell has time to go through somebody else's?
Yep.
Who the hell has time to do that? I don't know what he said, but I don't actually care. He was a teenager.
Yeah.
And are we living in a world now where, a 19-year-old is definitely on their way to a professional sporting career, if they're any good at 19?
Yeah.
So is it now the case that you're basically cut off from all the good things about social media, of which there are many? We're quick to criticize it. Social media is phenomenally positive in it was a bitter person that had the tweets ready. Okay, well, name and shame that person for doing it. I would seriously name and shame them for doing it, because that is just not on to try and destroy their living, basically. And what is racist and what is sexist? What is racist and sexist? Who has decided that?
Well, that's exactly my point. This seems to have, I'm glad you've brought it up, Rebecca, because it's kind of gone missing in the discussion on this today, because there's a sort of a general consensus. What he said was racist and sexist. Oliver Dowden said that it was that as well.
What did he say?
Well, I haven't seen the individual. I haven't seen the individual tweets.
Well,
But
can the stream tell us what he actually
yeah,
said?
yeah. But here's what I think. I think he's allowed to say, when you're a teenager and you've got social media now, people do say all kinds of stuff, and I hate the judgmentalism. I hate the fact that people are being, like in this case, a young sportsman is being dragged through the mire. I mean, he's apologized. If someone could go back in a time machine and capture my thoughts back in the day, Rebecca, I mean, I would be in prison more than likely. Because you think,
I'm actually in slight disagreement with you, because I think you should be allowed to say what you want. And
yeah, no, I agree.
And because
they should.
It goes underground if you don't let people say it. But you're
True.
to now, after the event, censor people for something they've said 9 years ago. The fact that he's a teenager actually is irrelevant, because he's no less of an adult at 19 than he is at 28. So my view is he's allowed to say it anyway.
So Rebecca, we found the tweets, or some of the tweets. We're both seeing them for the first time. I mean, look, these are teenage comments. That's all they are. I can see, one comment, bad taste, arguably. But then again,
Asian people put smileys
like this, and they've done a thing with the eyes. They've done a thing with the eyes.
Not going to lie, a lot of girls need to learn the art of class. True. Fair comment. Somebody doing, my new Muslim friend is the bomb. Okay. Females who play video games actually tend to have more sex and be happier with their relationships. Sorry, neither of those comments are sexist, I'll tell you that for free. The racial ones, do you know the Mr. Men comics, books?
Yeah, I do.
My son bought, he'll probably kill me for saying this, he bought a T-shirt when we were in Bombay together, which was Mr. Jihadi, and he wore it. He wore it to the airport, and it was a Mr. Man dressed up as a suicide bomber. Now, he was like 16 at the time. It was insane. Of course he bought it. I paid for it, obviously. We bought two because I was worried it was going to fade, because Indian fabrics can be a bit crap. It was a joke. It was not. He's not a suicide bomber. He doesn't think suicide bombers need glorifying. It was just Mr. Man character, Mr. Jihadi. Now I probably just stuffed his career up by saying that. But, so what? It's like, say it. If you feel it, say it. But there will be consequences if you say bad things. But what's he said there that's wrong? I mean, obviously can't really say it properly, but
yeah, in those tweets, Rebecca, my view of them would be there's one of them which is arguably in questionable taste, and the rest of it is just what teenagers might think, and the thing is, you are right that if people aren't allowed to express themselves, they still will have those thoughts, but they do go underground. So it's healthy to put things out. But here's the point. Like, again, there's been this big explosion in social media over the past decade or so. We've all lived through it. Everybody on the stream. We all know what's happened with the growth of Twitter and Facebook in particular, I guess. And all the young people communicate. This makes me sound so old. Young people. Granda says young people communicate through these social media platforms. And of course, when they're young, their thoughts aren't, they're entitled to their bloody thoughts. As you say, and it doesn't even matter if they're young or not. Again, you're right, Rebecca. You should be able to say what you want at any age, as long as it's not criminal or incitement or any of those things. You should be allowed to what you say. But this is a different level. This is somebody combing back through somebody's social media to get stuff to get them in trouble. I think that's a crime, probably, to be fair, doing that.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm forced to tolerate the taking of the knee crap, then you unidentified permanently offended person
Yeah.
should be tolerant of the fact that your fast bowler has made a dodgy comment 10 years ago.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
but we deal with this at the Free Speech Union all the time. And I have
yeah.
mentioned this before, that there are kids who've said things, at uni, maybe a bit pissed, whatever, and they've been sent down, meaning they've lost everything. They've spent 3 years of their life, they've got a debt, they're not allowed to finish their degree, they get sent home with no qualification after 3 years for saying, I don't believe in critical race theory, or I think you need to stop shouting. Why do black
Mm,
women always shout so much? Apparently, aggression is a trope, a racist trope. And I'm like, yeah, but Shola, what's her face, shouted all the time every time I was put up against her on RT. And she
yeah.
was so shouty, they had to press the mute button on her. She was so bad. But, and apparently you can't say that black women shout because that's racist. Actually, it's not. They're just shouty. Stop shouting. You just can't speak freely anymore. And I
That,
guess
that, yeah.
even me, I mean, maybe the stream doesn't know this, but I was under a Bar Council investigation for quoting the UN Special Envoy on Refugees, and a whole group of Muslim lawyers pounced on me and reported me to the Bar Council, as did John Burko. It's like cancel culture. Just stop that person earning money ever again because they've offended me. It's ridiculous. It's
Yeah, no,
ridiculous.
it is, and it is, Rebecca. It is all part of the panoply of cancel culture, but like you only can imagine what that young cricketer's gone through, because he'd been selected and he seemed to be doing really well, and all of a sudden, he has to. I want to issue a historical apology. I'm so sorry for what I said. I bet he's not really sorry. He's probably sorry. It's been splashed all over the media. That would be probably being honest about it. But yeah, it is bad, and it is bad that the English Cricket Board couldn't have stood by him. That's the other thing. So whilst I understand what the stream's saying, and they're saying it wasn't them that actually, the didn't do the direct trawling, but by the same token, they could have turned around and just said, "Yeah, youthful indiscretions, move on. We've got a cricket match to play." Why couldn't they do that?
To win. The good thing is, though, and I know that you and some of your stream have been very anti-Boris because of lockdowns, but I had thought you'd go a little bit easier on him because Dominic Cummings said that he was a disaster for lockdowns and he should have gone sooner. But if you couldn't let up on him when Dominic Cummings proved him to be a little bit more libertarian than like we all thought, this actually is in Boris Johnson's playbook, because some of you might remember that he said when he was an MP that the Liverpudlians tended to have a mawkish sentimentality about things. Now, I think that was in relation either to Hillsborough, where they didn't like being criticised by the Sun for nicking things out of people's pockets, which did happen, or it was over that taxi driver who went to Syria and got beheaded, and they wanted a day's public holiday for it. And he said, mawkish sentimentality. You may remember that Michael Howard made him go up to Liverpool to apologise. And I will never forget this, because this is really when Boris Johnson first came onto my radar. And his apology was, I'm sorry that the people of Liverpool were so offended by what I said.
The non-apology, yeah.
So Ollie has got a champion in Boris Johnson for having to apologise. And I hope that Ollie takes something out of the Boris Johnson playbook on how you don't apologise for something when you're being forced to apologise for something. I'm sorry you felt so offended.
Yes, exactly. It's the politician's apology. I'm so sorry if you feel offended. In other words, I'm not remotely sorry, and that's I do get that aspect of it. As I do get that aspect as well, but it's just I'm just annoyed about the fact that a teenager nonsense on social media is taken to give people a really hard time. Having said that, have to be said, for years during my Twitter years, everything I ever said was dragged up in evidence against me. John says the stream's gone down. It's back. I think that must be the Russians or the Chinese, although we're not allowed to talk about the Chinese because that might offend certain platforms. But anyway, so hey, listen, we'll move on from wokey, cancel-y culture to matters financial. So listen, so the G7 gang are in town, I think this weekend coming, aren't they? And I think this is quite significant because I've got a question for you in this one. So it's to do with... oh, by the way, is that wine you're drinking, Rebecca Butler?
No, it's an alcohol-free beer.
Because you probably missed this before we get into the story. I think it was Stu Frost came on the a stream on Saturday, Friday, a show I did back end of last week. And anyway, he dropped a couple of super chats. The first one was, quote, to buy Rebecca Butler a bottle of Blue Nun. And then the second thing was, I think he then dropped some more cash to buy her. If Stu, I think you're on the stream, so you remember. I think it was to get you. It was a burger or something. So I just want you to know, Rebecca Butler, that Stu reckons you're the kind of gal a bottle of Blue Nun burger. It's your idea of a good evening. Would that be about right, Rebecca?
Absolutely, Stu. Send. Don't give it to David. Give it to me. I'll give you my address. Send it to me directly. I won't have you handing David money. Goodness.
I mean, Stu Frost, have you looked at the price of Blue Nun recently? By the way, because I can assure you, a $5 doesn't cut it. Not if you're getting the vintage Blue Nun. I remember, actually, Blue Nun was one of the first, I remember when I was really young, I'm mid-teens. I think Blue Nun and Black Tar, I remember drinking those. Does anyone in the stream remember? Sorry. Stu Frost has corrected me.
Stu Frost, flowers first.
Flowers, then alcohol. Stu, you smooth talker. Where's he? Flowers were first, then the Blue Nun. LOL. Who says this isn't a stream of humor? Right, we're moving on to the. So they've agreed at the behest of Joe Biden, which is really the key thing to talk about here, a 15% minimum corporate tax rate. Now, I know some people, you might think, oh, this is very dry and a dull subject, but it's not really, because here's the thing I wanted to ask you, Rebecca. I mean, your general feedback on this, then a particular question. Like the fact that the UK, US, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan, those being the G7, have agreed this as a minimum tax. Yeah. But my question, Rebecca, is when we've talked about, and we're all Brexiteers, and we wanted the UK to make its own way and to forge itself as Singapore on the Thames or whatever we want to be. But having a minimum corporation tax rate, which is the rate in business, seems to me a really bad idea. What do you think?
I think there is a sovereignty point here.
Yeah.
We moved away from a supranational body undemocratically making rules that bound us, now into the G7 doing it. But I do have one or two comments to make on this. Okay. Firstly, Singapore actually has a corporation tax rate of 15%. So it would be a huge drop down from where we are now to go to 15%. So that would favor Britain very well on the numbers, but let's not let substance get in the way of form, because once you agree to it once and to being set, then you are then vulnerable to them changing it arbitrarily at some point in the future. There's still a democratic deficit here, but rather than bother about corporation tax, what are we doing about Amazon and Starbucks and particularly Amazon, actually, non-taxpayer? I think they're registered in Luxembourg. So would Luxembourg even fall into this regulation?
Oh, sorry. Alert. The donate link is down. I'm sure our producer will sort this one out, Guy, because you can just drop a super chat, actually. Same thing. But anyway, carry on, Rebecca.
You know why, David? Is because it's now crashed because they're all trying to send me flowers and a bottle of Blue Moon.
Your wine cellar is going to be replete with Blue Nun. Someone else has talked about Uncle Lambrini. So I'm telling you, Rebecca, it's all happening, and it's all happening for you. But the point you mentioned about an invasion, the intrusion into national sovereignty, is one that I do have an issue with. In absolute terms, I kind of agree that, all right, we've been informed. The donate link is up, Guy Harris. Go and check it out and let us know. The 15%, the one country that is going to absolutely shaft is Ireland. Those good little boys in the European Union who have got a CT of 12.5%. So Ireland, and of course, that's why I think I read yesterday, it was one of the big corporations, Amazon or Microsoft, one of them, had vast amounts of money's gone through Ireland and no tax. Zilch. Zero. I mean, I want to know who their accountant is because I love that. But I mean, so there's a point, there's a definite point to be made about these people. But my problem is, Rebecca, I don't believe that this is about making the big guys pay more, because if you take Biden in the States, for example, it has to be said, one of the platforms we're talking on tonight, has contributed quite a bit of money to the Democrats over the years. All the big corporations have been supporting the Democrats. Why would they want then to punish their pals in these huge corporations through CT? It doesn't kind of hang right. It doesn't seem right to me, if you know what I mean.
No, but also, can the G7 set a rule for the rest of the world? I mean,
good question.
It's run through the OECD, so maybe are they saying, well, 7 of us can only go down to 15, because there are plenty below 15, but there are a hell of a lot above 15. And the 0%ers number about 10, I think, at the bottom, and they're places like the Cayman Islands and Bermuda and the Bahamas and Burkina Faso or somewhere like that.
That's right. Yeah.
Kind of almost irrelevant because they don't make anything anyway, sort of places. The big manufacturing countries have, some of them have really high corporation tax. India has a high corporation tax, but of course nobody pays it, which is why Modi demonetized the economy. But, I can't see that the virtue signaler G7 are going to really have much impact on the rest of the world, because, as you say, tax is a sovereign issue. Can I ask you something, David?
Yes.
This is my turn to ask you. Why is the EU flag in the G7 summit?
Good question. Don't know.
Look at the flags, everybody. See if Jed can pull up a picture of the summit. And you'll see that the EU flag is up there. Interesting.
Well, I mean, the thing that interests me is that, as you say, and you put your finger on it, Rebecca, if the G7 want to set a rule for themselves, that's one thing. So that's their business if they want, I guess. But then, if you're not in the G7, why shouldn't you then be allowed to set your corporation tax at whatever rate you want? Because I think that would, I could see some of these large corporations, relocating to obscure countries or minor countries who just who'd be very happy of having those companies. What
if you decide not to be in the G7 anymore? You say, actually, I want CT of 12. I'm leaving the G7. Oh, nobody would miss you, would they?
Here we go. Here's a picture. G7. Here we go. Strange image. India. Are they in the G7?
Yeah, there must be.
I'm trying to see. Just trying to read here. Pardon me, staring into the screen. My eyesight isn't great. Yeah, so look, the fact of the matter is that I'll tell you why the answer is the EU is a supranational body, so is the G7. As somebody's rightly said in the stream, this is about, in my opinion anyway, these big establishing the idea of setting global tax rates. I disagree with that. I think each country should be allowed to set its own tax rates, and it'll either fall or succeed based on that. So that's what I think about it. But as I say, from a Brexiteer,
the vast majority, and I mean 90%, I reckon, of countries on this planet do not collect taxes. They do not collect taxes. So,
yeah,
this is just talking about the color of the icing on a cake. And it's just like a talking shop. Who is the G7 anyway? Who are they? Who are they? Who's the
yeah.
G20? Who are these people? Herman Van Rompuy, who are you? Who voted for you?
Who are you?
Who are you?
Exactly, yeah.
Just men sitting round tables talking, stroking themselves. It sounds like a crappy boy band. That's exactly what it is. And, they're making decisions that will have an impact on you. But what do you do with the money? What is the purpose of this bit of distraction from the fact that Biden cannot get a single piece of legislation through Congress?
You see, Rebecca, you've hit the nail on the head, because for me, and thank you very much, by the way, Guy Harris, appreciate the super chat. The thing is that'll pay for another bottle of Blue Nun. The Biden wants to increase US taxes. And the only way you can protect, if you like, that American tax base is to make sure that it's not massively undercut by other G7 members in particular. So this has been an American initiative. I think he wanted to set it at 20%, actually. I think that was talked about, and then it's been compromised at 15%. And that's what we, that's what we have apparently agreed to. But as a Brexiteer, I object in principle. I want the UK to set its own. Although having said that, as you say, Rebecca, like we're setting 20% at the moment. Rishi said it's going up to 25% over the next couple of years for large corporations. And again, I have to say, I just completely disagree. At least smaller companies will be treated a little bit better. But I just believe
therein lies inflation. Therein lies a cost on things, because companies will always find a way to recoup, and they will just simply pass the cost over to the customer. Now, I think we've discussed this before. Anybody who's been out since they were allowed to, since the lockdown was partially lifted, which is a bit of a bugbear with me, but anyway, they will notice that prices have gone up quite significantly. And, airline prices are just like blooming yo-yos, but there is a big risk of hyperinflation now coming out of this mini recession we've had. And I would have hoped that Rishi, with all of his training, would know that the worst way to recoup tax revenues is to put tax up.
Yeah,
it's been proven time and time and time again.
Yeah.
That's why Singapore has such high compliance and such high tax revenues. It's a very similar economy to ours. Reduce tax, Rishi. Don't put it up, and don't encourage inflation, because that would be devastating if we got into what they're looking at as 8% inflation, which would be absolutely devastating. Particularly with interest rates being so low, your money in the bank is going to be worth even less than it is now.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guaranteed way to burn through fiat currency. So, and what you've just said is absolutely right, Rebecca. Inflation is sizzling away. We see it in things like energy prices, for example. It's going to be seen in the things that you buy in your supermarket. All those areas are being impacted. And so, yeah, I agree. I would have thought someone like Rishi Sunak, who does understand, I believe, economics, would understand the basics that you don't put up taxes. It's the last thing that you do. But that's what he's done, and that's what the government's plan is. And now the 15% in a way doesn't affect us. I think, Rebecca, realistically as a country, it will affect Ireland dramatically. So what's this? Someone says, I've got a few questions here. The old Stuart, will you be hosting a June 21st Freedom live stream? Get off the stream, Stu, or send me more. I would need to be drinking a crate of Blue Nun, which Rebecca will be providing to be able to do that. But yeah,
they're going to push it back. They're going to push it back. I'm telling you that for free.
Yeah, absolutely. We can agree on that. There is not a chance in hell of us getting Freedom Day, and it's very depressing. It has to be said, but some of us have been predicting that would be the case. However, you know
what? I don't want to make this at all a contentious remark, but vaccines work. So we were told vaccines work. We were told this vaccine works. So some of us went out and got the vaccine. So why don't you just let the vaccine work if the vaccine works? Because you told us the vaccine works, which is why we took it. So open the bloody economy up.
Well, in that regard, you do sound a bit like what's her name? Julia Hartley-Brewer, who I think has been saying that for the last number of days to government ministers, in all fairness. Because we have this division between you and me over the vaccine, but nonetheless, the people who have taken the vaccine, I think we're sold that on the basis that it would give them protection and also enable the country to open up. But I don't think the country's going to open up. And
my deal with the government was it's either me getting a vaccine or social distancing carrying on. Social distancing can't carry on. The pub sector, hospitality, cinemas, a whole lot will fall flat if we have to have masks and social distancing. Therefore, I will have the vaccine because they work. So now kindly open up, because 87% of people who are at highest risk of coronavirus have had the vaccine. France, by the way, France is operating on a plateau. I know we weren't due to talk about this, but France was operating on a plateau of about 10,000 cases a day, and they operate on a plateau of about 200 deaths a day, and it's rigidly there, and it's rigidly not moving in the numbers. So we've got to get to that point in Britain where we're not pursuing zero anymore. Thanks, Stu.
Hey, Stu, have you been drinking it? That's the point. Never mind buying it. Have you been drinking it? But yeah, no. But Rebecca, the thing is, I mean, here's a couple of quick questions before we finish off. Do you think? I mean, I think there's a kind of consensus that it's not going to be happening in June 21st. But there is talk of, well, we'll put it back for a couple of weeks, just a couple of weeks, just 3 weeks. Well, I don't think you can say 3 weeks because that's been used. But do you think, actually, seriously though, if it was put back a nominal 2 weeks to, let's say, the 1st of July, for the 5th of July, I think has been talked about, do you think that date would then also be pushed back or not? What do you think? I mean, I know you're not a mind reader, but just
well, but the thing is, look, if it's right that this new variant is 40% more than Kent, and Kent was 30% more, so that's 70% more than COVID v 1.0, then you are going to have fewer cases, but people have been vaccinated, so it doesn't matter, because it's cut the link between cases and hospitalizations, which has always been my argument. So you cut the link between the cases and the hospitalizations. We've done that. The people in hospital now are either one vac or no vac up in places like Bolton, which has had the worst of it. Even the NHS managers are saying, we're not overwhelmed, we're coping, this is no big deal, crack on with June the 21st. I think if they move that date, they're going to have to come up with something staggering and justify why they're not doing it right now. Because if it's so awful that it's going to do something on June the 21st, they should be doing it on June the 1st. So
Yeah.
another 2
Yeah.
weeks is not going to make a blind bit of difference. I actually wonder, is this a very puerile spin operation where they're spinning it to look as though they might, but then Boris Johnson needs to recover a little bit from the Dominic Cummings drama. Hancock needs to recover from the Dominic Cummings drama. And so they're going to come out as the good guys by saying, actually, yeah, we will stick to June 21st, because Hancock and Johnson are saying two diametrically opposite things about it right now. Messaging is very poor.
Yeah, and Rebecca, you're right. It could be a sort of, ploy, a sort of psychodrama over the next couple of weeks. But I don't know. Certainly, the signalling from certain people in government, like Matt Hancock, for example. I mean, is he just a pantomime villain who rocks up and said, "Well, I'm open till it being pushed back"? And then Elizabeth says in the stream here, there'll be riots in the streets. I'm not so sure if there will be, but I think there'll be a lot of, and actually, Rebecca, you're a perfect example of this. There'll be a lot of people who will be feeling pretty miffed at the very least.
Because, France, bizarrely, France has shown confidence in the vaccine by saying vaccine passport. You want to come to France, just bring a vaccine passport. You don't even need a PCR test. So why is a country that's had a problem with the vaccine always, why are they first out of the blocks to say, actually, the vaccines do work and a vaccine certificate is good enough for us? So that just is incoherent with the British policy. So I'm getting increasingly frustrated. As you know, I'm not a Matt Hancock fan. I've never been a Matt Hancock fan. I think he's a kidult, part child behaving as an adult. I just am not a fan of the guy, for I think very justifiable reasons. But they're messing around with people's livelihoods now. The pandemic has been mitigated with the vaccines. We know we're going to live with it. We know we're not going to get a situation where we're COVID free. This is our life. This is it. Really forever. So we have to crack on with it. We can't be in this penumbral neverland interminably. Cut it and just say, look, society has to accept X number of cases and X number of deaths every day, just like we do with cancer, accidents. You wouldn't allow people to drive motorbikes. If
absolutely, yeah,
precautionary approach to everything, you'd ban motorbikes. You wouldn't let people cross roads at zebra crossings, for God's sake. You would make it illegal for people to break down on a motorway. You can't have zero deaths from things. So get on with it. We've had the vaccines.
The thing is, you can't have a zero COVID policy. That is for sure, Rebecca. You can't, because you can't have a zero anything policy to do with, infections and diseases, because it happens. At the moment, I think the figure is 450 people or so per day die of different cancers. And, the death toll from COVID where I live is like zero on a recurring day basis. And even in England, where it's a much bigger population, it's still, it's a tiny number. Every death, obviously, is, to be regretted. But, you can't carry on like this. It'll be really interesting to see between now and June 21st what happens. But anyway, I think my signal's beginning to go. So I'm going to get out of here before I'm actually bumped off by my Wi-Fi. I think we have, we got to say a few things before we go. First of all, thanks for all the super chats and super stickers. I think Jed's got something sitting up he wants to share with us. Jed, you got an image here from Tesco, I think. I see down in the box below. There you go. Who says this is anything other than the classiest show imaginable? So there we go. Balloon on. 75 CL. Get it while you can. 515. Yeah, right. Sure. I pretty well told you.
Wow, that's a
5%.
good one.
That's inflation for you. That's the hyperinflation we're warning about. Who knows? It could be £6 by the summer, I mean, by the time July arrives. But anyway, seriously, folks, thank you all. Thanks, everyone, for being on the stream. Really appreciate your time. Rebecca, of course, most of all, thanks to you for giving up your time to be with us this evening as well. And I hope you've enjoyed it. And I'm reading some of the comments here. Right. Simon Hastings is getting himself in Butler with his wife. Simon Hastings, you're a naughty boy. Right. Okay, folks, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the chat from us. Hope you found it interesting. We're trying to tackle lots of different issues. I don't want to be just monotopic. So that's it. So listen, I'll do my two Ronnies, but anyway. So look, thanks again. And that's it from me. Good night.
And it's good night from him.
Night, everybody.